Sparks fly as Clint Eastwood and Jasmine Crockett clash on live TV, their fiery debate over leadership exploding into personal attacks, and a shocking revelation that leaves America stunned. The morning talk show set buzzed with anticipation. The hosts, Sarah and Mike, had promised a blockbuster segment. Iconic actor Clint Eastwood, the grizzled face of American grit, squaring off against Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, the sharp-tongued firebrand shaking up Washington. The topic? Leadership and generational divides in politics. But nobody expected the chaos about to unfold. Sarah kicked things off, her voice bright but cautious. "We're thrilled to have two titans here today. Mr. Eastwood, you've been a cultural icon for decades, known for your no-nonsense take on life. And Congresswoman Crockett, you've made waves as a bold voice for a new generation. Let's dive in. What does America need in its leaders today?" Eastwood leaned back in his chair, his squinting eyes scanning the room like he was sizing up a showdown. At 94, his gravelly voice still carried weight. "America needs strength," he said. "Leaders who don't bend to every passing trend. We've got too many folks chasing headlines, not results. Back in my day, you stood for something and you stuck to it." Crockett, poised and unflinching, raised an eyebrow. Her tailored suit and steely gaze screamed confidence. At 44, she was a rising star in Congress, known for her viral takedowns and unapologetic advocacy for marginalized communities. "With all due respect, Mr. Eastwood," she began, her Texas drawl cutting through the air, "standing for something doesn't mean standing still. America needs leaders who listen, who evolve with the people. Your day was great for some, but it left a lot of folks behind," the audience murmured, sensing the tension. Mike jumped in, trying to steer the conversation. "Congresswoman, you're saying progress is key. But Mr. Eastwood, you've argued traditional values are the backbone of this country. Can you elaborate?" Eastwood smirked, leaning forward. "Look, I've seen this country through wars, recessions, you name it. Values like hard work, family, freedom, those don't change. You don't fix what ain't broken. These young politicians, they're all flash, no substance. They're selling dreams they can't deliver." Crockett's jaw tightened, but her smile didn't waver. "Flash? Mr. Eastwood, I've spent my career fighting for people who've been ignored by your so-called timeless values. Families who can't afford health care, communities torn apart by systemic inequity. You call that broken? I call it a wake-up call." The crowd erupted in applause, but Eastwood wasn't fazed. He waved a hand dismissively. "You talk a big game, Congresswoman, but where's the proof? You're all about tearing down the past without building anything real. I've made films about heroes, real men and women who get things done. What have you done besides tweet?" The jab landed. Hard. Sarah's eyes widened, and Mike shifted uncomfortably. Crockett leaned forward, her voice low but lethal. "You want to talk heroes? I've been in the trenches, passing laws to protect voting rights, to fund schools, to keep families fed. Don't come for me with your Hollywood script, sir. I'm living the real story." The audience gasped, some cheering, others whispering. Eastwood's face hardened. "You're living a story, all right," he said, his tone darkening. "But let's talk about the real Jasmine Crockett. I've heard things, Congresswoman, about your past, your deals, your so-called rise to power. You want to lecture me? Clean your own house first." The studio fell silent. Crockett's eyes narrowed, but she didn't flinch. "You're crossing a line, Mr. Eastwood," she said, her voice steady. "You want to play dirty? I came prepared." She reached for a folder on the table, her movements deliberate. The hosts exchanged panicked glances, unsure how to regain control. Sarah stammered, Let's keep this civil, folks." But Crockett cut her off, holding up the folder. "No, Sarah. He wants to go there. Let's go. I've got something to say about Mr. Eastwood's legacy that'll make this country think twice." The crowd held its breath. What was in that folder? Eastwood's smirk faded, replaced by a flicker of unease. The segment was spiraling, and America was glued to their screens, waiting for the bombshell to drop. The studio lights seemed to burn hotter as Jasmine Crockett held the folder aloft, her eyes locked on Clint Eastwood. The crowd's silence was deafening, every cough and shuffle amplified in the charged atmosphere. Eastwood's unease was palpable now, his fingers twitching slightly on the armrest. He'd thrown the first personal jab, but Crockett was ready to swing back. Hard. "Congresswoman," Mike interjected, his voice strained, "let's keep this about the issues. No need to—" "Too late for that," Crockett snapped, her gaze never leaving Eastwood. "Mr. Eastwood wanted to dig into my past, question my integrity. Well, I've got questions too. About his legacy, about the truth he's been hiding for decades." Eastwood's eyes narrowed, but he forced a chuckle, trying to reclaim control. "Hiding? Little lady, I've lived my life in the open. Made tough calls, stood by 'em. You're grasping at straws." Crockett's lips curled into a razor-sharp smile. "Am I? Let's talk about your tough calls then, like the ones you made in the 1980s, when you were mayor of Carmel. You remember, don't you? The deals you cut, the favors you traded, all to keep your image squeaky clean while others paid the price." The audience gasped, whispers rippling through the crowd. Eastwood's face tightened, his jaw clenching. "That's nonsense," he growled. "You're making things up, trying to smear me. I ran that town fair and square." "Fair?" Crockett opened the folder, pulling out a stack of papers. "These are public records, Mr. Eastwood. Permits, contracts, letters, all tied to a real estate deal that pushed out a black-owned business to make way for one of your buddy's developments. You signed off on it, knowing it violated zoning laws. The family lost everything. You walked away richer." The studio erupted, some audience members booing, others shouting in disbelief. Sarah's mouth hung open, and Mike fumbled with his cue cards, clearly unprepared for this. Eastwood's face flushed red, his voice rising. "That's a lie. I don't know where you got those papers, but they're fake. I never—" "Fake?" Crockett cut him off, holding up a photocopy of a signed document, Eastwood's signature unmistakable. "This is your name, isn't it? I had researchers dig into Carmel's archives. Took months, but the truth doesn't stay buried forever. You profited while a family was ruined. And you call that leadership?" The crowd roared, a mix of cheers and jeers. Eastwood slammed his hand on the table, his composure cracking. "You're twisting history. I made that town better. You're just playing the race card, like every other politician looking for a headline." Crockett didn't blink. "The race card? No, sir. This is about accountability. You built your career on playing the hero, but heroes don't leave families homeless for a quick buck. You want to talk about my past? At least I've never hidden who I am. Can you say the same?" The hosts were visibly sweating now. Sarah tried to regain control. "Okay, let's take a step back. This is getting heated." But Eastwood wasn't done. He leaned forward, his voice low and venomous. "You think you're clever, don't you? Digging up dirt, waving papers around. But I know your type. You climbed the ladder by cozying up to the right people, making promises you couldn't keep. Tell me, Congresswoman, who's bankrolling your little crusade? Who's pulling your strings?" The accusation hit like a sucker punch. Crockett's eyes flashed with fury, but she kept her voice steady. "Bankrolling? The only thing backing me is the truth. And these documents aren't just about Carmel. There's more, Clint, about your investments, your ties to shady developers across California. You want to keep going?" "Because I can." The audience was on edge, some chanting Crockett's name, others heckling. Eastwood's face was a mask of rage, but there was something else. Fear, maybe, flickering in his eyes. He opened his mouth to retort, but Crockett wasn't finished. She slid another document across the table, her voice cutting through the chaos. This one's from 1995. Care to explain it? Or should I? The crowd leaned forward, phones out, recording every second. Eastwood stared at the paper, his silence louder than any outburst. The segment was no longer a debate. It was a battlefield, and Crockett was armed to the teeth. The air in the studio crackled with tension as Clint Eastwood's eyes bore into the document Jasmine Crockett had slid across the table. His silence stretched, heavy and unnerving, as if he were calculating his next move in a duel. The crowd, phones raised, captured every second of the standoff, their murmurs a low hum of anticipation. Crockett sat back, her expression unyielding, the folder still open before her like a loaded weapon. Mike, the host, finally broke the silence, his voice shaky. "Congresswoman, you mentioned 1995. Can you, clarify what this document is about? Let's keep this fair and give Mr. Eastwood a chance to respond." Crockett's gaze flicked to Mike, then back to Eastwood. "Fair? Oh, I'm all about fair. This," she tapped the paper, "is a contract from 1995, tied to a film production company you invested in, Mr. Eastwood, a company that got a sweetheart deal on public land in California for a studio lot. Sound familiar?" Eastwood's face twitched, but he leaned back, crossing his arms. "I've invested in a lot of projects. You're gonna have to be more specific, Congresswoman. This is starting to sound like a witch hunt." The audience stirred, some shouting support for Eastwood, others urging Crockett on. She didn't hesitate. "Specific? Gladly. The land was supposed to go to a community center for low-income families. Instead, your company swooped in, got it for pennies, and built a studio that made you millions. The kicker? The deal was greased by a state official you endorsed, one who got a nice payout from your friends. I've got the receipts right here." She held up another paper, this one a scanned email exchange, the names redacted but the context clear. The crowd erupted, a mix of gasps and cheers. Sarah, the co-host, looked like she might faint. "Congresswoman, these are serious allegations. Mr. Eastwood, how do you respond?" Eastwood's voice was low, almost a growl. "This is garbage. You're dragging up old business deals, trying to paint me as some villain. I built jobs, created opportunities. That studio employed hundreds. You're cherry-picking facts to fit your story." Crockett's eyes flashed. "Cherry-picking? The only thing I'm picking is the truth out of your lies. That community center would have served thousands, given kids a safe place, families a lifeline. But you and your cronies saw dollar signs and sold them out. You call that leadership? I call it greed." The audience roared, some clapping, others booing. Eastwood slammed his fist on the table, his voice rising. "You want to talk greed? Look in the mirror, Congresswoman. You're out here grandstanding, acting like you're pure. I've heard about your campaign funds, the cozy dinners with corporate donors. You're no saint." Crockett's smile was ice cold. "My campaign? Every dollar's accounted for, every donor disclosed. I've got nothing to hide. But you've been dodging accountability since I walked out here. That studio deal wasn't just a one-off. There's a pattern. Carmel, this land grab, and more. Want me to keep going?" The crowd was electric, hanging on her every word. Mike tried to intervene. "Let's dial it back, folks. This is—" "No!" Eastwood cut him off, his voice sharp. "She wants to play dirty. Let's play. You think you can tear me down with your papers and your speeches? I've faced worse than you, kid. You're out of your league." Crockett leaned forward, undeterred. "Out of my league? Sir, I've been fighting men like you my whole life, men who think power excuses everything. But the world's changing, and your time's up. America's watching, and they're done with your excuses." The audience exploded, some chanting, "Jasmine!" while others heckled. Sarah's voice barely cut through. "We need to take a breath here." But Crockett wasn't slowing down. She pulled another document from the folder, her voice steady but searing. "This one's recent, Clint. From 2018. A foundation you're tied to, funneling money to offshore accounts. Care to tell America what that's about? Eastwood's face went pale, his hands gripping the table. The crowd's noise swelled, a tidal wave of shock and curiosity. The cameras zoomed in, capturing the moment that could redefine a legend's legacy. The studio was a pressure cooker, the crowd's roar a pulsing heartbeat as Clint Eastwood gripped the table, his knuckles white. The cameras lingered on his pale face, catching every flicker of doubt in his steely eyes. Jasmine Crockett stood her ground, the 2018 document in her hand like a lit fuse. The accusation of a foundation funneling money offshore hung in the air, a bombshell that threatened to unravel Eastwood's carefully crafted image. Sarah, the co-host, tried to cut through the chaos, her voice trembling. "Congresswoman, this is a serious claim. Can you explain what this document shows? And Mr. Eastwood, we'd love your response." Crockett's voice was calm but razor-sharp. "This is a financial trail, Sarah. Bank records, wire transfers, all linking a foundation. Mr. Eastwood chairs to accounts in the Caymans. Millions moved under the guise of charity, but the money never reached the communities it was meant for. Instead, it padded the pockets of his inner circle. I've got the proof right here." She waved the document, a spreadsheet with highlighted transactions, and the audience gasped, some shouting in outrage. Mike, visibly rattled, turned to Eastwood. "Mr. Eastwood, what do you say to this? These are heavy accusations." Eastwood's jaw worked, his voice hoarse but defiant. "This is a setup. I've given millions to charity, helped people you'll never know. You think you can waltz in with some papers and ruin me? I've been in this game longer than you've been alive, Congresswoman. You're fishing." Crockett's eyes narrowed, her tone icy. "Fishing? No, sir. I'm reeling in the truth. These aren't just papers, they're audited records, verified by accountants who don't scare easy. You want to talk charity? Tell us where the $10 million from your foundation's 2018 gala went, because it didn't go to veterans or schools like you claimed." The crowd erupted, some chanting, "Answer her!" while others booed Crockett. Eastwood's face flushed, his voice rising. "You're lying. I've done more for this country than you ever will. You're just a loudmouth with a vendetta, digging up dirt to make yourself look big. Who put you up to this? Your donors? Your party?" Crockett leaned forward, unflinching. "Don't try to flip this, Clint. Nobody put me up to anything. I'm here for the people you've stepped on, families, veterans, communities you used, as props while you cashed out. You want to talk vendettas? You started this, coming for my past. Now you're mad because I hit back harder." The audience was a sea of noise, some cheering Crockett's name, others heckling. Sarah raised her hands, desperate. "Please, let's keep this civil." But Eastwood cut her off, his voice a low snarl. "Civil? She's accusing me of crimes on national TV. You think I'm going to sit here and take it? Tell me, Congresswoman, what's your angle? You're so clean, huh? I bet there's plenty you're not saying about your own deals." Crockett's laugh was sharp, cutting through the din. "My deals? I'm an open book, Clint. Every vote, every dollar, every fight I've taken is for the people, not my wallet. You can't say the same. Your foundation's been dodging taxes while you play the patriot. America deserves better than your smoke and mirrors." The crowd's energy surged, phones flashing as they recorded the clash. Mike tried to steer back. "Okay, let's focus on leadership. Mr. Eastwood, you've said traditional values are key. Can you—" "No," Crockett interrupted, her voice commanding. "We're done with deflections. This isn't about values. It's about accountability. You've built a myth, Clint, but myths crumble when the truth comes out. And I'm not stopping until it's all on the table." Eastwood's eyes burned with fury, but there was a crack in his armor, a hesitation that hadn't been there before. He opened his mouth, then closed it, glancing at the document still lying between them. The crowd sensed blood in the water, their shouts growing louder. Crockett slid one final paper from her folder, her voice steady but electric. "One more, Clint. This ties you to a cover-up. Want to guess what it is?" The studio held its breath, the weight of her words sinking in. Eastwood's hands trembled slightly, and the cameras caught it all, zooming in on the moment that could shatter a legend. The studio was a cauldron of anticipation, every eye fixed on Jasmine Crockett as she held the final document, her words about a cover-up echoing like a gunshot. Clint Eastwood's trembling hands betrayed him, the cameras mercilessly capturing his faltering composure. The crowd's murmurs swelled, a mix of awe and disbelief, as the weight of Crockett's accusations threatened to topple a titan. Mike, the host, stammered, his voice barely audible over the din. "Congresswoman, you've mentioned a cover-up. Can you tell us what this last document is? Mr. Eastwood, you'll get a chance to respond." Crockett's gaze was unrelenting, her voice steady as steel. "This," she said, raising the paper, "is a memo from 2020, signed by a lawyer tied to your foundation, Mr. Eastwood. It details a plan to bury a whistleblower's report about your offshore accounts. That whistleblower? A former employee who tried to expose your tax-dodging scheme. They were silenced, fired, discredited, their life turned upside down, all to protect your name." The audience exploded, gasps and shouts blending into a wall of sound. Sarah's face was ashen, her hands gripping her notes. "These are explosive claims, Congresswoman. Mr. Eastwood, what's your response?" Eastwood's voice was a ragged growl, his eyes blazing. "This is slander. I've never silenced anyone. You're spinning lies trying to destroy me. That memo's fake, just like the rest of your so-called evidence. You've got nothing but a vendetta." Crockett's smile was cold, unyielding. "Nothing? I've got a paper trail that's been vetted by journalists, accountants, and legal experts. This memo's real, Clint, and so is the whistleblower. They're ready to testify, to tell America how you buried the truth. You can call it a vendetta, but I call it justice." The crowd roared, some chanting, "Justice!" while others jeered. Eastwood slammed the table, his voice cracking. "Justice? You're a hypocrite. You stand there acting righteous, but you're just chasing fame. I've built a legacy. Films, jobs, charities. What have you done except tear people down?" Crockett leaned forward, her voice cutting like a blade. "Tear people down? No, sir. I lift people up. Families, workers, communities you've ignored. My legacy is fighting for them, not hiding behind a myth. You've had your time, Clint, but America's done with heroes who lie." The audience was on its feet, the noise deafening. Mike tried to intervene. "Let's calm down, folks," but Crockett wasn't finished. She set the folder down, her voice rising with conviction. "I didn't come here to play games. I came for the truth, for the people you've hurt. Your deals in Carmel, your land grabs, your offshore scams, they're not just mistakes. They're a pattern of greed. And today, that pattern ends." Eastwood's face contorted, fury and fear warring in his eyes. "You think you've won? You think this changes anything? People will see through your act, Congresswoman. They'll see you for what you are, a nobody trying to be somebody." Crockett's laugh was sharp, triumphant. "A nobody? I'm the voice of everybody you've stepped on. And they're watching, Clint. They're done with your excuses, your deflections. This isn't about me winning. It's about the truth winning." The crowd erupted in applause, some shouting her name. Sarah, finally finding her voice, said, "Congresswoman, Mr. Eastwood, this has been intense. Let's wrap this up. Any final words?" Eastwood glared, his voice low. "I've said my piece. America knows who I am." But the defiance felt hollow. His legend cracked under the weight of Crockett's evidence. Crockett stood, her presence commanding. "America does know, Clint, and they're choosing a future where accountability matters. I'm not here to destroy you, I'm here to build something better. For all of us. The audience cheered, a tidal wave of support. The hosts, shell-shocked, ended the segment, but the cameras lingered on Crockett, her folder closed, her mission clear. The clip went viral, sparking debates across the nation. Eastwood's legacy was tarnished, his silence damning. Crockett emerged as a beacon of truth, her courage reshaping the political landscape. The confrontation wasn't just a moment. It was a movement, proving that no one, not even a legend, was above accountability.